please now give a warm welcome to Werner Herzog and Albert Serra.
Good afternoon. Well, thank you very much for being here. Congratulations, Werner, for your prize, of course. And well, we'll start a conversation, a spontaneous conversation. I think it's better in this case. We are both filmmakers, so maybe we can talk in a different way. Just to start, maybe a general question. You received this prize for all your career. You have done a lot of films. You have worked with very different kind of ambience, places, people, kind of films, etc. Maybe just to start, and from here we will go in more concrete things. But how have you seen the evolution, of cinema since you start until now? Or maybe more interesting, even how you see your own, relation or your own approach to cinema, if it changed or not since you started until now,
Yeah, I think fundamentally it has not changed, although technologies have changed. I started out 35 millimeter celluloid, and hardly anyone knows celluloid movies anymore. But it's a very essential way to learn how to deal with a medium. And I think, sure, I've been a lot around, and the subjects of my films are dispersed, and there's a lot of variety in it. However, they are not foreign to each other. I think there's a common worldview and you recognize it immediately if you switch on, let's say, your TV at night and the film is in the middle of playing, and you would, within less than a minute, you would probably recognize it's a film that I made. But it's basically the same worldview and the same attitude, and it's a very fundamental, essential attitude towards this kind of work. And when we were out there and talked a little bit, I know very little about your life, but I know one thing which I immediately like. You know how to milk a cow. So do I. And I think it's good that a filmmaker knows how to milk a cow. And it's probably has more significance than being at film school. So you have not been at film school. I have not been at film school. And I think you don't need to go to film school to make films. And you don't need to go to the school of poetry to become a poet. So you cannot learn it.
And because society changed, your attitude towards cinema, maybe not, but society changed. Do you miss something? Do you have any kind of nostalgia, or you try to be focused also in the present? Because we know that maybe the 60s or the 70s, maybe there was more, the vibe of the society was more interesting, or a little bit more, I don't know, from collective point of view, there was something else.
No,
it didn't affect you.
No, I have just plowed on, and what has never affected me was trends. So that was quite often a difficulty I had in my life releasing a film, because it was way outside of every trend. And so I have never followed. I normally did not even know what the trends were. And it's a good thing. For example, I staged operas, including in Sevilla, where you were filming. The opera house is only 2 blocks away from the bullfighting arena. And when I staged my first opera, I had not witnessed an opera as a spectator, as an audience, ever in my life. So I had no idea what opera was supposed to look like. And because of that lack knowledge and lack of trends that were somehow seen by me. My opera staging was so different and so unique that all of a sudden audiences responded to it. And it's a little bit with films, a little bit like that. Also, I do acting once in a while, and I don't care what the acting schools are, method acting and whatever. I can't care less. So I'm just out in front of a camera, and sometimes I tell actors when I work with them, just don't ask too many questions. You know the story, you know the scene, you know the content. So now step in front of my camera and turn the pig loose. Lass die Sau raus. So, and that has been had more value than giving them detailed instructions, telling them everything about the background of the figure, childhood traumas or whatever. I don't care about this. And actors sense it, and it's a very direct, I call it a barefoot attitude. You just go out and bring to life what's in you.
This is one of the most maybe remarkable, atmospheres that we feel coming from you, that you are, and I will use, an interesting word, I think you are innocent somehow, because you talk about opera. You said, I start doing operas without never being in one. For example, there is a very moving video on the internet, in YouTube, where you talk about John Waters, and suddenly you said, John Waters is gay? I was with him a lot of times, and I never noticed anything. Or, for example, you say, you said, yeah. You met the film of, the Bad Lieutenant, and you said, I don't know the original film, it's not. So my question is, how to keep this innocence alive, until this point of really, being able to, nowadays that we live in a super, sophisticated world, with information and all these kind of things, but really live inside this innocence to be able to create something new?
I wouldn't call it innocence. It's something, but it's probably related to it. And for example, when I see you and I speak to you, I see a person, and I see a soul and somebody who is alive, and a colleague, and it's wonderful to talk to you. And the episode with John Waters was particularly striking because I knew him for 40 years. And from his early films on the same distribution company, New Line Cinema, distributed his early films in some of my early films. And we met sometimes. He was lovesick and cried on my shoulder. And I tried to give him courage, and I said, John, it's fine. But I didn't know that his lover was a man. But I knew he was, and he said he was lovesick, and I was with him not very often, but saw him once in a while. And at the 40th anniversary of the existence of New Line Cinema, we were both on stage, because it was a phase with little excerpts of our films of the very first steps of New Line Cinema, the ones who did Lord of the Rings later. And I had to speak first and stepped out, and there was a single light on us. And I stepped to the side, and I saw him in profile, and 800 people looking at him and listening to him, 1,600 eyes on him. And I looked at him, and the way he spoke and the way he was dressed. And a moment later in the green room, my wife was waiting, and I said to her, Lena, could it be that John is gay? And I mean, it's so obvious, but not for me. But it's not innocence. It's
How will you call it?
Pardon?
Would you call it if it's not innocent? Which
don't
word
have,
would you use?
Yeah, I don't have a real term for it. It's a very essential way to see a person.
Because, you know, all the main, especially in the last films, documentaries, you know, we are very focused on characters, on real people, authentic people, we would say. So do you think that this is one of the main attractions when you decide to make a film? The person, not even the actor or the character that will appear, but the person that is in front of you, it's, you know, it's something that really pushes you to make a film? Or?
Yeah, to look deep inside of someone. And sometimes in my last film, Ghost Elephants, I was from one day to the next in Namibia and with San Bushmen tribal people. And I immediately had to make contact and incorporate them in the film. And you see the very first contact that I ever made is actually in front of the camera. And I ask one of the main characters, a Khoi San Bushman in Namibia, I ask him, in your language is Chokwanzi, and you consider yourself, in translated, it means real people. So real people, you are the real people. What am I then? Am I still half an animal because I have hair on my chest? And he laughs and he says, of course you are also a human being, and we call you the hairs or the hairy ones. And that was the first contact ever, and you see it in the film. And from then on it was easy, and I think you have to have it in you as a filmmaker to develop an instant rapport. The same thing with you and the bullfighter. And they sense, because a bullfighter is so exposed to danger and solitude and a ritual, they would sense from 2 miles distance that you are not the right one. And they look at you and they allow you to make the film, and nobody else was allowed.
So it's a choice that they make on you.
They also have to make it. You are not only the one who makes a choice, they also make the choice, and so do your actors. I just am finishing a film with 2 sisters, Kate and Rooney Mara, and they're very, very close. And yet, both of them, when I made contact, both of them demanded that I meet them individually. So I met first one of them, then a week later the other one. And then there was silence, and they said, we have to sort out things. And the moment they met, they immediately let me know, we are interested, we would trust you, let's go get together. And I invited them and we cooked for them. And instead of talking much about cinema or so, we just cooked and had a wonderful afternoon. And sometimes these things are more important than long discourse about cinema and about a role. And so they are so experienced that they know immediately.
So you think that, you know, there is a direct connection between being somehow authentic in life and to be interesting in cinema? Do you think, did ever, you know, this was broken in some sense that, you know, somebody that was interesting then on camera maybe didn't reflect this kind of interest?
The key on camera. There has to be something radiating from the camera.
But you don't know before you decide to make
I know,
film.
that's my profession. And it's your profession. And if you don't know that, don't touch the next film. But you have done it before. No, of course.
Matter of intuition.
You have done, yes. Now you have to know that, and you can't learn it in film school. And it's quite often misleading. many years ago, when I was very young, I was introduced to Brigitte Bardot at the Cannes Film Festival, and I thought, oh my God, a little mousy as a person now, standing with you, short and completely uninteresting. And yet on a screen, she has this kind of charisma and eroticism and has something very, very special. And I've seen it quite often, in particular with females, with actresses. Very often when you are with them in a conversation outside of a movie set, they are not very convincing or so, and you have to know on screen that's where you need to have them.
What is the reason?
Pardon?
What is the reason? What do you think?
That's a mystery, and we don't know why. Why is it that Greta Garbo had this charisma and many others? Where does it come from? But that's part of the beauty of cinema.
And you have worked, talking about actors, with, crazy actors. We know Klaus Kinski, for example. So is there a big difference, or how do you approach, again, one of these actors that it's difficult to put control over him, or other kinds of actors that probably you have worked in your late feature films in Hollywood, or that are very, that they just following you, or just, listening what you say and trying to do what you say, with another one of another era or another character that it's totally the opposite. It's a rebellious person that it's even going, it's what's about, you describe anecdotes on your film that it's almost about to destroy the film, So
sure, yes,
how do you approach to these two kind of actors, and what do you see any difference, or your attitude is always the same, or you adapt, or?
Well, I've seen a lot of difficult ones, which is okay. It's part of the profession. You have to deal with them. And how can I say, when you speak about control, sometimes it is not the best of all worlds to have complete and utter control over every actor. They have to have breathing space. It is good, sometimes it's good that they can be the architect of their character. Nicolas Cage is one wonderful example like that. He knew exactly what I needed from him and what I wanted to get from him. And I said to him, Nicolas, you have to be in all the details, you have to be the architect of your own character. But certain things were quite controlled and quite strange. I said to him, I want you to be with a slanted shoulder line. I have to show it, meaning you are not in front of the camera with a straight shoulder line. You're always slanted, always like this. And I said, preceded by your gaze. And he said, what do you mean? And I said to him, you are like a vulture, you are like a bird of prey. And it's not that I'm looking at you like this, but like this, always like this. And he understood. And it gives a mysterious quality to him. And in many ways, he has certain liberties. And it wouldn't have functioned, it wouldn't have been good if he had tried to have control over every sort of element of his performance.
But you care about how they are,
Sure, of course. And I tell them this. In Hollywood, it's unthinkable that you tell an actor. I took him aside after one take and I said, Nicolas, my feet are getting numb. This is totally boring now. And it's what is it? Yes, I do that. And they appreciate it. They like that somebody says something, and I immediately said, I don't think it's your performance. There's probably something wrong with the dialogue which I wrote, and maybe with the choreography of the scene. So let's abbreviate the dialogue. Let's throw out a few lines, move into the scene much faster, and give it a different dynamic. And he said, okay, yes, and understood it. And the next take was wonderful, and I shot very few takes. And there was one interesting moment with my last film, or that's not completed yet, almost finished, Bucking Fasted. They are the Mara sisters, and what's the name of the Orlando Bloom? Sorry, I'm jet-lagged. Orlando Bloom, and he's in a court scene and has a long scene in the witness stand, 2.5 minutes. Practically the camera on him. Of course, there's a quick question from an attorney, and he answers, and it goes. And 2.5 minutes is a enormity of time, and a lot of dialogue, a lot of statement as a witness. And I put up the camera, and I'm a one-camera guy, only one camera on him. And he did this whole thing, and it was absolutely wonderful. And I said to him, Orlando, this was wonderful, great, and you can relax now. And I said, next ones in the witness stand are the two sisters. And he said, what? My main performance, one single take, one single time filmed. And I said, yes, trust in me. That's what my profession is. I know you are great. And he walked out, and outside he spoke to costumes and whatever. And they came hurrying back to me, and they said, Orlando is completely upset. He's so upset. I've never seen an actor so upset. So I walked out and I said, Orlando, come on. What's the reason for being upset? And he said, one single take. My main performance, one take. And I said, if you really think you can add to it, back into the witness stand, camera is still there, and I did a different lens, and I repeated 3 times. In the final film, there's only from that one first take material in it.
Well, for the reason you are the director, no?
Yeah, and I do not film much material. I did a film in Japan in a language, a feature film, in Japanese language that I do not speak and I do not understand. And the grand total of footage was 350 minutes. Other filmmakers shoot 350 hours or 3,000 hours. I had 350 minutes of entirely filmed footage. But I knew some of the footage that I shot I could not repeat because I had no permission to shoot at the platform of the bullet train in Tokyo. It's high security area. You never get permission. So I rehearsed the scene with the actors on a different plateau, brought them to the set. We were just hanging around, waiting for the train to come in. The moment the train comes in, I switch on my camera. The train stops for 60 seconds and then shoots out. 30 seconds into filming, because there are security cameras everywhere. 30 seconds into shooting, I see 4 or 5 security men coming at me, but they didn't touch me. And when I was done filming, of course, they wanted to know. And all my actors had dispersed in different directions. We knew what we had to do. And I knew I could not repeat it. So you have one single chance. And quite often it happens to you that you have one chance. And when you do a film with bullfight, of course, it's a documentary, but there's only one chance. Your bullfighter goes out into the arena, and that is that. You cannot ask you, can you do this movement once more for you? Of course, it's impossible.
And where it comes this desire always shooting in places, in forbidden places, in dangerous places, in, critical situations. Why do you like this kind of? Do you think it creates special energy on images, or is just the subject that attracts
No,
you?
a bullet train platform where people exit or enter a train is nothing special.
But in other films, you are always in special place.
Depending on the story. And yes, I filmed in the jungle and in Antarctica, but some of my films, yes, in wild nature, but it was always mandatory because of the subject of the film. But I have done 8 films in the most unnatural of all places, on death row in Texas and in Florida. And it's a cement cell and a plexiglass bulletproof window in front of you and an inmate at arm's length on the other side who is going to be executed 8 days later. So it cannot be further removed from nature. And yet I do it, and I feel all right. I'm not seeking the thrill of a location or so. That's silly. I want to make a film for a screen.
Just talking about feature films, mostly, we can say, has it evolved the way, or because we have done films with big budget, lower budget, so you shoot always the same way, you have always shooting only with one camera, the same, or it has evolved, or you adapt to films, or you shoot with several cameras sometimes, or how do you approach with feature films? We know documentaries are special and different in every case, but with feature films?
I think being a one-camera guy is a fundamental attitude, that you know your perspective. You know what you want to see on the screen. And having 5 cameras at the 2 of us from all sides and close and reverse shot and all this is mostly by people who delegate the decisions where it should not be. They delegate it into post-production because normally they don't know what they are doing. I do use 2 cameras and once 3 cameras when you have a complex scene with 200, 300 actors, 4,000 actors. But even in Fitzcarraldo, the opening scene is 4,000 extras and there was only 1 camera.
So you trust that this camera will capture.
You have to trust in yourself. You have to know what you are doing.
And you think that, this cannot go wrong sometimes, or?
Yeah, it cannot go wrong because I cannot repeat it. You see, the Fitzcarraldo was made with no money. You cannot repeat it. You cannot get 4,000 people next day again. And of course, on celluloid, you do not see the result. And now in the age of digital cinema, what is happening on sets everywhere in the world now, the so-called video village, play out on video screens where costume people and whatever, anyone, producers, they all are glued to video screens and they watch what the camera is doing. But I'm next to the camera and I see the actors. I'm also the last one to move out between the actors on one side and the camera and sound and lights on the other side. That's why I do the slate. I move out as the last one. And I see the actors are ready. And not only that they know their movement and their dialogue, I see they have worked themselves into it, and now is the moment. And that's an important thing, I believe. And otherwise, I do not, what I wanted to say, I do not allow video play out. Nobody, me included, does not see on the screen what we are filming. And it makes everybody nervous. They're frantic, like taking, as if I had taken the cell phone from everyone. But I actually do not allow cell phones on my set. There are cell phones, but if you have to make a phone call, for example, an assistant calling in, let's say, a track for a dolly or so, and the truck with it is 2 miles away, yes, you have to call them in, but you have to move away. There's wherever the camera is, whether it's rolling or not, that's the center of things. And if you have to make a call, you have to be something like 70, 80 meters away, not in the presence where we are working. And it's very good for a set. Everybody's focused on what we are doing. And I've seen filming.
They are implementing this in Hollywood in a lot of productions, that mobile phones are forbidden because people was losing concentration.
Yeah. And I've seen it from the other side of the camera as an actor in Jack Reacher in a gigantic hall, and there are 220 crew members. 220. 205 are hanging around and on their cell phones. 15 are really working on the set and set the lights, the camera. And you think you are crazy. This is insane and shouldn't be like that. And Fitzcarraldo had a crew of 14, Aguirre a crew of 8.
Of course, not during the 35mm era, but now do you check the rushes during the shooting of your film?
No,
never.
I'm not looking at video. I look at the material when I'm in the editing room. I look
after the end of the shooting.
After the end of shooting, I look at the entire footage together with an editor. So 4 eyes looking at it, and I write log books, as I call them, frantically, 50, 60, 80, 90 pages of log books, what I see, and writing it down in longhand, not typing it into my laptop, where memory is delegated to a chip. But when I do it in longhand, I can memorize footage. I can memorize 30 hours of footage like memorizing a poem. But only while I'm editing. When I'm done editing, I lose it slowly. Within a week or so, I vaguely know, yes, take 4 in this scene was certainly the best.
Let's talk a little bit maybe about, because you are famous also for not paying a lot of attention to other filmmakers or cinema of the past. You know, where did they really come your influence? We know that life is very important for you, or the people you met, or even your own background. What is the importance also of books or literature in your, because you say that, okay, you are always a little bit reading with books, but you said also that you read a little bit and then you start imagining things and you are not very, like an obsessive reader, but that this is the first step to get into something, but then you create. So what is the relation between, books? Because nowadays all young filmmakers, they are not influenced by literature, they are not influenced by life, they are mostly influenced by other filmmakers or other images done by other people. So how do you relate with, the text or the written language?
It doesn't have...
You write your own scripts, most of them.
Sure. I always write my own screenplays, and so do you. But it's not being influenced by literature when I mean reading. Read and for example, I read really low-class writing. For example, Errol Morris gave me a book from a failed lion tamer whose arm was bitten off by a lion, and he has written his biography. But I mean, it's really badly written, and you have to read it. It's not literature, it's not poetry. Or I read, at the moment I'm reading a book about reality, about the fabric of reality. That's actually the title, and has to do with new understanding of reality in terms of looking at quantum mechanics. And there are strange things happening that are outside of our experience with reality. And it's interesting. I just read things like that, or I read, God knows, a catalogue of an art exhibition in Kassel. What is it called? The pardon?
Documenta.
The Documenta. Just do me a favor and go back and read some of the catalogues of the 1980s. It's unbelievable. It's only art speak. And until today, it's unreadable. It's completely and utterly unreadable. And I like to look into texts of legal texts that are partially unreadable as well. So it doesn't have to be literature necessarily, but you're pointing at something that I'm a writer and...
Write a lot of books. Well,
yes, and that's not... it starts to catch on, people see, and they start to understand that my poetry and my prose will probably live longer than my films. They start to understand it. But it has to sink in, and I can't do much about it. But it's strange, a book that I wrote in the 70s, most of you were not even born yet, of Walking in Ice, has been, was always sold out, one edition after the other, and all of a sudden, recently in Argentina, in northern Argentina, I know it has become bestseller #1 so many years later and in Spanish translation. And you have my biography, but you should, Every Man for Himself and God Against All, but you shouldn't read it so much as a source of events. If you're looking for what I did do then and what school I attended, event, it's, I don't know, it's not all of it. It's more literature. You have to see it as literature as well.
yeah, and what do you think? That it's always very interesting because it's always spontaneous and naive, you know, how you analyze your own events or things that happen to you. This is very interesting. Here there is a quote, they said, I don't use, you know, because you are innocent, but at the same time you are very sharp, you know, so he said, I don't use mobile phone, I never trust, you know, media. For this reason, I try, for example, to have my own political vision of, you know, of reality of what happens. And for example, what I do is to read Western media, Al Jazeera, Russian television, and then, you know, I watch the whole speech of a politician. You know, so this is very interesting because to have this diversity of point of views, and the idea also, because one thing is to read something about Donald Trump, for example, and the other thing is to hear, you know, 1 hour and a half of an interview. So, you know, you get a different, or you have a deeper, you know, knowledge of what is going on there. So
of course,
how do you combine all these
we are in a world of fake news, and my last book has a title, The Future of Truth, Die Zukunft der Wahrheit, and part of it is fake news in the past, and also how do we deal with fake news and falsifications and bias in the news. And of course you cannot trust anything, and that's, instead of spending hours and hours in the bubble of a specific narrative, I quickly go and I check, what does Al Jazeera say, what does the Chinese information tell us, what does the Vatican, for example, say, or what does a pope say? And I read a whole speech of a pope. And all of a sudden, I cannot say that I have the truth now of things, but I have a much more nuanced understanding of what is reality out there.
That's interesting. And just again, change subject maybe. Music, you know, you did a lot of what is the importance of music? Also in your first films, you work with a very important band and you create one of the most wonderful link between images and music in film history with this band. And also you yourself, as you said, you did a lot of opera, stage opera. So how you connect music, images, or even what is the importance of music in your own life or thinking or artistic?
Yeah, in the films, it has a huge role. It's not just emphasizing the emotions. You see that in Hollywood, in the mainstream media, mainstream filmmaking, that you have wall-to-wall carpet of music underlying it, telling you what to feel. In my case, music has a different dimension. It opens sometimes perspectives and emotional perspectives that you would not realize without the music. It does not change the physical aspect of what you see, the projection of light, but it changes our attitude as an audience. Music has been very important for me, in particular as between age 13 and 18, there was no music for me. It was a complete silence, a complete void, a complete rejection of engaging myself with music. It had to do with one of these little tragedies in school that happen sometimes. An ugly tragedy.
Which one?
Well, our music teacher, who had this crazy idea that everybody was an artist, everybody had musical talent, asked the class at the end of the school year, stand up and sing a song. When it came to me, I said, I don't sing a song. I don't sing. And then he became insistent and nasty and wanted to impose his will. And I said to him, you can do the somersault forward or backward. I'm not going to sing. And then he brought the principal, the director of school in, and they immediately started to debate whether I should be dismissed from school altogether. And then these pigs, took the class hostage. And they said, nobody's leaving for intermission until Herzog sings. And that was nasty. And my school buddies, I said, come on, Werner, sing, we won't listen. Just sing. And for 40 minutes, I didn't sing. And then I sang, and I never sang, and I knew I would never, ever sing in my life again, which I haven't managed until my age. And I was completely separated from music. Until today, I cannot read music annotation, music scores, even though I stage operas. I cannot read the score, but I listen very well. And so the moment school was over, there was this enormous void, this enormous urge, music, and I immersed myself autodidactically into music. And the intensity of my encounters and my nexus with music probably comes from a time of 4 years or almost 5 years of complete silence.
And just maybe one last question, a personal one. Now we will open maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. You have known countless, interesting and important people and all kinds of people. One that I know that you knew quite well, that it's, and maybe for all other cinephiles here, was one of the heroes of mine, was Amos Vogel.
Who?
Amos Vogel.
Ah, yes.
So can you, because you know his book is maybe one of the most important books on cinema, you know, film as a subversive art. So can you just, you know, talk a little bit about him? Because I know that you met him several times and it was maybe a close friend even.
Yes, we had friendship, although we didn't see each other so often. Amos Vogel.
One in the book, you know. He
Yes,
talks about it,
and of course he distributed films and exhibited films. It was for a while
New York,
the director of the New York Film Festival. Amos Vogel was a Jewish refugee from Vienna, fled at the age of 14, settled down in New York, and he was some sort of, together with a few others, Lotte Eisner, for example, or Henri Langlois in Paris, who had founded the Cinematheque. He was one of the few persons where you knew they are the consciousness of cinema. And he gave me a lot of courage and support. And when, for example, Aguirre was not seen by anyone, nobody wanted to see the film. It had very bad reviews. He said to me, Werner, you just sit down. We'll have a coffee now. And he said, time is on your side. Time is on the side of the film. It will find its audience. And it has. And he was so clear in his understanding of cinema and some of the things I did that he became very close to me. And he wrote or published a book, Film as Subversive Art, which is somehow a guideline in many ways. I've completely forgotten that he wrote it. Good that you mention it. And I miss him. And I miss Lotte Eisner and I miss Henri Langlois. So a few that were almost like mentors.
It's a beautiful paradox because you say that, you know, the film got very bad reviews and now the film Aguirre got very bad reviews and now everybody considers it a masterpiece. So, you know, as he said, it's quite a big paradox, no? How things can evolve in totally opposite
it's
direction.
It's in the nature of this work. And it was an unusual film at that time. From Germany, you had films about society in Germany in the 1970s. And it was very time-oriented and very trendy. And Aguirre was no trend whatsoever. Until today, it is no trend. It's some way a unique film.
Okay, maybe we can do one or two questions from the audience. Well, there are a lot of people waiting there, but
Can we start here?
yeah,
We start here, yeah. There's a
short,
mic on?
maybe.
Mic is on? Okay, cool. Werner, thank you for being here. I don't want to spoil your visit to your home country. And I guess you are nostalgic or surreal being back here. But in my opinion, we live in cultural poverty. We don't appreciate art very much. The pillars of art, beauty, truth, freedom, they die in the clouds of superficiality and hypocrisy. And in this factory, a flower can't grow, can't blossom. And you had your guidances in your life, your fair share of guidances. And when I would appreciate it very much, because from one radical dreamer to another, I would ask you for a beer or for a fresh drink for 15 minutes after this session to push me in the right direction to get along, because we make reality through dreams, we make dreams through reality, and I see myself in you in parts, and I have a lot of anthropological and existential questions.
We understood.
This is a personal, subjective approach. I have an objective one too, but what you say, Werner, man?
Okay. Yeah. Next.
Well, let me give a partial answer. It's I'm not here for nostalgic reasons. I'm here because this is a very lively festival, and I'm also here because I always, although I do not really know Cologne, but it has something vigorous, something unique. It has its very, very strong character. There's hardly any city that has this strong character. Munich had it for a while. Now it's dissolving into chicaria. But and I like to be here because it's a lively audience, and for me it's always good to hear from you that in a way I can give you some courage with the way I'm doing films. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We should have a question from this side.
Hello, my name is Yannick. Thank you for being here. I would like you to provoke us a little, because I heard that yesterday evening Mr. Serra said he doesn't really trust in young people, and he doesn't really want to produce young people because they're, I don't want to misquote you, but too focused on their own success, right? And so I would like you to expand, maybe both of you, and agitate us a little bit and make us feel something. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I simply said yesterday that, because I produce some filmmakers, but all of them old. And he said, why not you don't produce young people? He said, well, the people I met, at least, they are too focused on success. So this is the main thing they have in mind. So I was not very interested, and because I don't know. There was no artistic goal as the main thing.
Yes, but in all earlier times you had a lot of uninteresting young people as well. And I keep wondering when I look at 5-year-olds, they're all interesting, all fascinating. When they are 15, they are dull and uninteresting and whatever. And I ask myself, what happened
from 5 to 15?
10 years? What has happened? What happened to them? And of course, there was always superficiality. And do not avert your eyes completely from what is superficial, because sometimes out of this level of superficiality, you have phenomenal movies coming out. Fred Astaire, for example, the most shallow of all stories, in the face on a screen that is kind of insipid. But anyway, and all of a sudden he makes films dancing with his shadow, 3 shadows, and it's quintessential cinema. Or you have a filmmaker like Russ Meyer, who is only interested in big breasts, and all of a sudden, he captures the essence of something of his time. Or in kung fu films, sometimes there's strange stylizations that we should not overlook it completely. So keep your eyes open to the superficial things as well, because you're surrounded. But make your own assessment. And this is why I watch sometimes, not often, I watch superficial cinema. God knows, WrestleMania. Not because I'm a fan of WrestleMania, but what is interesting is that
the obsession.
And prefabricated fake fights. It's not real fights. And everybody in the audience knows. But the collective emotions are true. That's a strange thing. The emotions are truthful. Not that I advocate the superficial, but as a poet, you have to keep the finger at the pulse of what is going on in the world.
Okay, maybe another. I don't know how much time we have, but 5 minutes more, so we can do.
Ja, ich glaube, ich ziehe mir erstmal meine Schuhe aus, weil so eine Frage sollte am besten ohne Schuhe gestellt werden. Und zwar kann man fast alles, was Menschen machen, letztendlich ja auf den Fortpflanzungs- oder Überlebenstrieb hin interpretieren. Und
Ich verstehe Sie akustisch nicht. Sprechen Sie ein bisschen lauter.
ja, also alles, was der Mensch macht, kann man letztendlich auf die zwei Urtriebe, Fortpflanzungstrieb und Überlebenstrieb hin interpretieren. Die einzige Ausnahme ist Kunst. Also es gibt natürlich Leute, die Kunst für Anerkennung und Geld machen, aber das, was am nächsten rankommt, also wenn jemand Kunst um der Kunst willen macht, dann wäre meine einzige Interpretation, dass es eine Art von dem Wunsch nach Unsterblichkeit ist. Meine Frage wäre, würdest du so einer These zustimmen? Wenn ja, dann würde mich interessieren, wie du gerne in Erinnerung bleiben möchtest. Und wenn nicht, dann würde ich gerne wissen, warum machen wir Kunst?
I have to answer in English. I never felt that I was doing art. It's a foreign concept for me. I have much more the feeling, even though it may be understood in a misleading way, I always felt like a soldier, a good soldier of cinema, with a responsibility and courage and holding an outpost that many others have abandoned. So art itself is something quite foreign to me, but I understand what you mean. And question of immortality, I think it doesn't exist. Immortality is something completely foreign to me, and I do believe that what I'm doing comes from a certain sense of duty, also the joy of storytelling, the joy of cinema, everything. And when you look at a film like The Ghost Elephants, is simply the joy of storytelling, the joy of showing you something that you normally wouldn't see. And the way I want to be remembered, I couldn't care less, because I'm not gonna be when I'm dead. I'm not around anymore, and let my things be out there and disappear the natural way as all things disappear.
Time is on your side. They already told you.
No, it's
even after
but
that.
I appreciate that you took off your shoes.
Thank you.
Last one, please.
My question adds a little to this whole I'd say scheme of topic. I was wondering, you're a huge risk taker, and listening to your stories is insane. Like, what you've done to create cinema, to create art, is astonishing. Would you say you would have to give up your life to create art the way you do? Like, be as careless as you were yourself with your own life?
Oh, no, I'm careful with my life, otherwise I wouldn't be around.
That's the question. Yeah, it's insane you survived. It's crazy.
I'm very professional in assessing risks, and I test risks, and I do not drag anyone into incalculable risks. I have, in the media, I have this kind of rumor around me and this kind of aura, which is silly. I'm not a real risk taker intellectually, yes, and in my soul, and in my writing, and in my films, I do take certain risks. But if it comes to physical risks, I better test it myself first, and it comes probably from my early time when I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to be a world champion of ski flyers, of ski jumping. And of course there's a certain risk in it, and not 100% calculable. And of course in cinema it's also not 100% calculable. But the way how cautious I am and how well prepared I am is simply visible by a primitive proof. I've made some 70, 80 films. Not a single one, not one of my actors, not a single one was ever injured. I was injured, yes, but not the others.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Werner. We
Thank you,
have
yes.
no time. Thank you for being here. And okay, see you next film.
Vielen Dank, vielen Dank.